Hello, and welcome to another episode of Effluvium. This is the 11th episode of this final YouTube season, and I emphasize YouTube season, the final YouTube season of Effluvium, because Effluvium will manifest itself in a different format, in a different medium. It will rise from the ashes like a phoenix through Substack, where it will live its life as a podcast. And I still deciding whether or not it will be a podcast that you can optionally watch, because there are some people who would rather not show their faces. So it gives the opportunity for me to have guests who want to join this forum without necessarily having to be public or have a public profile. And that's completely understandable. So Effluvium will return in a different format. It'll just no longer be a part of my YouTube channel. I have decided that my YouTube channel will be dedicated more to some occasional live streams, but mostly pre-recorded videos. And those pre-recorded videos will be occasional because I have a very busy schedule. It's hard for me to create a lot of content. It takes a lot for me to just keep up with my Instagram each day. So I plan to do videos on a periodic basis where I'll focus on a certain topic. Some ideas for the future will be doing a video on rose fragrances, doing a video on carnation fragrances. I might do features on certain perfumers. So I have some ideas, but don't count on me doing videos every week or even every month. I'd rather spend more time and dedication on a single video, really put a lot of effort into it, and release one, maybe every other month. We're going to take a look at the comments here. Pat Lester, great to always have you here. And also you, Philippe Alex, scent of the day, Kiki by Vero Profumo. Rest in peace. And Noah is here. He's going to be joining us backstage. And then I'll be bringing him in for our discussion, which should be really enlightening. We have a few different topics in mind. Hi, Chuck Mueller. And thank you for tuning in to watch me and Noah. Fragrance enthusiast, when you spray a brand new fragrance, do you always say get a 2 to 3 air spray before you get a full spray? An air spray? No, I think I want to just put it right on my skin when it's brand new. But yeah, air spray, just to kind of take it in the atmosphere before you put it on your skin. Hey, I see nothing wrong with that. Momentarily Lost is here. Hello to you. And we have 18 people who are currently tuned in. So to give you some details on the discussion that I will be having with our special guest, Noah Drucker, we will be discussing the fragrance hobbyist, specifically newcomers to the hobby, newcomers to the so-called community, and what it means for that newcomer and how they evolve over time and develop their taste and their discrimination for fragrance, navigating the marketplace. We'll also be talking about developing an appreciation of fragrance as an art versus a capitalist consumable. And as we are already aware, many of us, it seems to be fast approaching the latter, and kind of going full circle, but beyond that. It's an interesting thing to explore. So we'll also talk about the role and ethics of dupes. That will be another topic. Perfume as a spiritual and a psychological exercise. And really the core of our discussion is going to be influencer culture itself, which I find endlessly fascinating as a phenomenon. We're going to hear Noah's take on influencers. He is a self-described anti-influencer. And if you will look at the description of this live stream, I have listed his TikTok that he does with his wonderful wife, Jamie, and they do a TikTok. They have over 16,000 followers on there. And he describes himself as an anti-influencer, which I like. And I will be asking him some questions about that. So it's going to be a great discussion. We're going to go back to fragrance enthusiasts. No, I mean making sure it's not used. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Well, of course, I don't really expect that if it's sealed. So that would be quite a surprise if it looks like that atomizer had already been primed and used. Yeah, that's a good point. Usually I have prior knowledge that it's used. So I think I would just still probably put it on my skin and then realize that it had already, that atomizer had already been used. So I'm not really too much of a stickler for that. If I see that it's a relatively full bottle, if it's been given a small amount of sprays prior to selling it to me, I'm not going to make a big deal out of that and claim that it's not new. You got to pick your battles. It's, anything that is unsealed, it is subject to having a few sprays taken out of the bottle. So we have Chuck Mueller again. Got my scents, Noah. They are awesome again. So Chuck seems to be a fan of Noah. I'm glad that Noah has brought some folks here. And we have liminality audios. I have found my way here through Noah. It's 4 cents. Great that you could discover me through Noah. That's awesome. Really appreciate that. We have 24 people who are tuned in. Rebecca Huff, hello to you. Thank you for tuning in here. Inner Wisdom School. Hi, Jamie. Finally, good to interact. Well, I have interacted with you a little bit on Instagram. I was trying to get in touch with Noah, but it's great to have you tuning in. Maybe at some point I can have you be a guest. Maybe before the end of this final YouTube season, I can have you join me if you're interested. Jean-Qui Sent, one of our regular viewers and supporters of the channel. Scent of the Day is Inouï by Shiseido. That is my favorite Shiseido. Even I actually like that one a little bit more than even Noble Noir, which I just recently had the opportunity to sample. And I'm glad that you're here too, Chuck. I'm happy to be able to get acquainted with some mutual friends. And we'll get things started pretty soon. Hey, Noah, if you want to go backstage right away, you join the StreamYard. I'll see you backstage and we'll get started with a conversation. We usually get things started about 15 minutes into the beginning of the live stream. If anybody else wants to speak up, share their scent of the day, afternoon, evening, night. Love to hear that. Actually, my scent of the evening is Serge Lutin's Fumerie Turque. This is what I'm wearing tonight. Is anybody familiar with Fumerie Turque? Fumerie Turque, I'm wearing it this evening. It is a lovely, raw, aggressive, earthy tobacco. Lovely, lovely stuff. It is in the Glacial, the skyscraper bottle. I think it is still in it, or maybe it's been moved to the bell jar. I can't keep track of that. Seriously, Tens won't make up their minds as to whether or not they're going to keep it in this format, put it into the standard format, move it to the bell jar, discontinued it altogether. They actually discontinued Elatraline, which was produced for some years, which are really surprising because they're not really one to discontinue fragrances. So Noah asks, how do I do that? Well, Noah, there was a StreamYard link that I had sent to you to your Instagram account. If you click on that StreamYard link or copy and paste it to your laptop, you can join via StreamYard. What will happen is you will go backstage. You just want to make sure that your mic and your video is copacetic before we bring you in. So just look for that StreamYard link in the chat in the Mrs. and Mr. Sniff Instagram. I sent that there along with a link to this live stream. So check that out and join us that way. And he says that he is on his way, which is wonderful. Scott Bearer, Tanagra by Maison Violet. Very nice. A resurrected house. And that is actually one from Maison Violet that I have not yet sampled. In fact, I don't even recall what the notes breakdown or the theme of that fragrance is. So, Scott, if you would care to enlighten us as to the details of Tanagra, we would be delighted to hear more about it. 23 people who are tuned in. We're waiting for Noah to join us backstage so that I can bring him into the live stream. I am very excited to have this discussion. Liminality Audios, have you tried anything from Homme Parfum? It is my favorite indie house. As a matter of fact, I have not. I have a huge backlog of samples that I have yet to get to business with and sample. So I can put that down for sampling, but it probably will take a while before I actually get around to it. But yeah, I've heard some good things about Alm for sure. No link in the chat. Well, this is what we're going to do. If there's no link in the chat, I'm going to go here right on my phone right now, and we'll take care of that. Give us 1 second here, folks. We want to make sure Noah is joining us. Okay, maybe. Oh, Noah, you know why? No, I like that alliteration. Noah knew why? I can't say it again. It's sort of a tongue twister. Noah, you know why? Because I actually sent it to you through your Fragrantic. There's where my mind is. Through your Facebook. Scroll up a little bit. You will see that there is something that says StreamYard, browser-based live audio for professionals. Click on that, and it will say that you're entering the studio. However, what I can do also is if you would like to join from your laptop instead of your phone, because that seems to link directly to the phone, is I will send you the link just through a different way. Because it's kind of a pain in the neck. It will just, unless you do a copy and paste, it will just link you directly to your phone. All right, you say you got it. So just figure out what platform you want to use. If it's the phone, the laptop, take that link, go in, you'll be backstage, make sure everything is in good order, and we'll have you joining us. Cole Moran, did I miss anything? Well, you're only 13 minutes into the live stream. You haven't missed too much, but we do have our guest who's going to be coming in very soon, and we're going to start our discussion. All right, and Scott says, Tanagra is an iris, pure floral that has a nice powdery projection to it. Some folks compare it to Equestrius by Parfum de Pierre. Very nice. That sounds pleasant. Thank you for sharing that. I will try to obtain a sample. We'll give that a try. I do see that Noah is now backstage in the green room, if you will, and we are going to bring him in right now. Noah, are you ready? Just give a thumbs up if everything is good. And I'm assuming things are good, so here we are.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, JJ.
Hi there. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yes, I appreciate the invite. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. And we can see you and hear you well.
Beautiful.
I'm glad that you could join us for a conversation here. And I think that you had some excellent choices for topics of discussion.
Great.
And we have some folks here who are tuning in to who already know you from your TikTok and your anti-influencer content.
That's right.
Love to talk to you about that. We have Cole here saying good afternoon to you.
Hey, Cole.
We have our resident moderator, and note to the wrench, ahoy, ahoy. We Are Sentient is here as well. Hopefully he can stay tuned in until it is way past his bedtime, because it is much later where he is. All right, Noah, we have some great topics here. Now, I am going to take a look at what our agenda is, and I think that we're just going to go in the order of what I have for notes down here.
Great.
Or, we'll just let it develop organically.
I love it. That's a plan.
That is the way to go. So, the fragrance hobbyist. Now, you were not so long ago a newcomer to the hobby and a newcomer to the community, which is sort of a broad term for enthusiasts, whether they're making content or they're just watching content, taking in information. I'm gonna have you take the lead. The floor is now yours. I want to get your thoughts on what it feels like as a newcomer, and what your observations have been.
Yeah, well, I think the best thing is to just sort of like walk you through the process as it's been for me. I do still consider myself a newcomer to this. And that's maybe lesson number one for the newcomers is to stay in that newcomer mindset, right?
Mhm.
Despite the big collection and having a lot of fun on TikTok and um, I'll walk you through the progression of getting deeper and deeper into the world.
Yeah.
I do still consider myself a newcomer. I have a ton to learn, which is why I still watch your show and listen to you and many others who've been in the industry for a long time. But, it began for me about 2 years ago, is all. And it started with this. Well, it's interesting because I listened to the interview you did with Rafi, right? Talking about the kind of addiction and obsession and ADHD side of that, which is something that Jamie and I have talked about at length. And um, I suddenly found myself surrounded by all of these little vials of dupe oils that were just littering the house, and my poor wife is cleaning them up left and right. And it was one of the things that led her to conclude maybe this guy has ADHD. It was one of the first things that was a clue for her and for me as well. So I started with that, and then one day she just sort of casually said to me, we could just go over to the mall and actually smell the real thing. And it was like my mind was blown that this had never occurred to me. That was the beginning of the end right there.
Yeah.
um, and as soon as I was opened up to that whole wide world of olfactory experience, I have been, I think, consumed by it to varying degrees for the last couple of years. So it started with that, and then I went through my designer phase. My very very first purchase was one that I still love, actually. In some alternate universe, I didn't become a collector and connoisseur. I just picked a signature scent, and it was Burberry Hero EDP.
All
Um,
right, you could do worse. That's not a bad one for something that is has. I don't really like that view. Sorry, for
yeah.
something that is more of a mainstream designer release. I smelled it, and it reminded me um, a little bit actually of Rocabar from Hermes.
Oh, really?
In
Interesting.
a way, it kind of did.
I've never
I
made that
was
connection.
I somehow made that connection. Not exactly, because we're dealing with about 30 years later, so we have different tropes that are being integrated into modern designer perfume, but it
Right.
had that same sort of sensibility to me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a good choice for if somebody's just wandering into a
Right.
department store counter for sure.
Yeah, and it's still sort of a barometer for me.
Yeah.
It's sort of my kind of keep me humble and in my beginner mindset, right? Where no matter how much high end stuff or artisan or quirky or whatever, I come back and I smell this and go, nope, I still love it. I'm still doing okay. I'm not a snob, JJ. I still like
Mm-mm.
my basic designer
Don't
stuff.
let that happen. You've seen it, and it gets snobbier and snobbier. that's
Absolutely.
that's what we're going to talk about, some fragrance heuristics.
Yep.
A equals B and therefore C. We're going to talk
Right.
about that a little bit. And yeah, keep
Yep.
keep your humility, and realize, like, you see me, I'm posting about
I
budget
love it.
drugstore fragrances from
I
the
love it.
80s.
I love it.
you know
Yeah, the history that you share with people through your accounts is just wonderful. But
I appreciate
so
that.
then as the progression goes, then it was okay. Well, now let me check out all of this niche stuff, and I got into the niche world a little bit, and we can go off on a
Yes.
tangent later if you'd like. I've developed a bit of a reputation as being kind of the anti-niche guy.
Yep.
But I did go through my niche phase and had probably 9 or 10 bottles of Parfums de Marly and that
Right,
kind of
right.
thing. And then I started getting more into indie. Then I started getting into artisan. I started getting into the stinky stuff, which
Yes.
you and I have chatted about, and would love
Right.
to chat again a little bit today. Um, and I got into first it was, well, what's the sort of practical size collection for me to use as a consumer. And then I realized I'm not just a consumer, I'm a collector.
Hmm.
Um, and then somebody even used the phrase, one of our followers said, actually, I think you're a curator. And I said,
Curator,
I
yes,
like that.
I've been called a curator as
You
well,
are
but I
certainly
have
a curator.
quite a
Absolutely.
museum for a curator. I have to reassess the curated collection now and then. But
Right.
I am not offended by that term. I think curator is much a much nicer way of judging the way somebody collects than say a hoarder.
Right. That's right. It sounds much more sophisticated, and
Yes, it
that's
does.
important to guys
Absolutely.
like you and I, right?
Right.
And then at some point I realized that, I wasn't just into fragrance. I was into the world, to your point, the community. I was consuming hours and hours of content a day, not just I'm not just kind of scrolling through and looking to see, which influencers are talking about which panty droppers and all of that.
Yeah.
Although I certainly went through that phase as well.
A lot of people do. Yeah.
Consuming your content and other people who have great educational and historical information. And I was just consumed by the whole world, the world of fragrance, not just collecting scents, not just smelling scents, but the whole world of it. And so inevitably what happens next? You buy a scale and materials and you dive into the world of, home perfumery. And so I
You're
dove in.
doing such the same thing as I was doing back in 2014,
Yeah.
2015. And you know what? I cheer you on for that because it's so much fun. Just be careful. It's super expensive.
Yeah, it's a black hole.
Yeah.
I now get as excited about a new materials delivery as I do about a new perfume
Hmm.
purchase. Right. Oh,
I
my
know.
muscadone is in. This is a big day.
Oh my God, you get to explore all the. I should recommend to you, besides like the Notes and Accord series that I've done on my channel here,
Which is
which is great for
fantastic.
big. Thank you, which is for really for beginners if
Yep.
they want to branch out into that. Also, my friend Jamal, he has an excellent Substack. I will. I don't really want to sidetrack us here, but I'll make sure to send you a link because
Great.
he does some great discussions on raw materials.
Oh,
He's
wonderful.
actually formally trained, so yeah,
Oh,
I should share that with you. Just
yeah,
wanted to
please do.
highlight We Are Sentient's comment. JJ, I think of using an archivist. There's a collection
Ah,
that's given a strange context. I'm really flattered by that, and I'm trying to really sort of distill that a little bit better. I'm selling a lot. The rule that I have right now is like for one thing that I buy now, I have to sell because it's getting out of control. But we're sentient. That's a very
wh-
kind thing for you to say.
what's your collection at, JJ? Share with the
It's
people.
over 1,000.
Over a
It's over a
thousand.
thousand, which I know I fully am aware. We were talking about this tonight, but a lot of that does have to do with the hedonic treadmill and that compulsion to want to satisfy that dopamine release.
For sure.
But I've been really working on trying to rein that in. And it's become a lot easier for me to let go of things. Like
That's
it's
great.
actually liberating. And you know what?
It is.
There's a dopamine release for selling stuff because
That's right.
you get your
Yep.
money back. So
You can
yeah,
absolutely learn to steer. It's sort of like riding a wave. uh,
right.
as a surfer. Yes, the wave is ultimately going one direction, but you've got a lot to say about how you kind of ride that wave and which direction to take yourself. And yeah, you can learn. I now get as much of a high out of like filling my cart and then Xing out of the browser before hitting purchase as I do purchasing, right?
That's
So
excellent. Yeah, yeah. You hesitate. You give it a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of deliberation. You get it out of your system, and then you leave it alone. Yeah, totally,
yeah,
totally.
we'll stop just short of calling it perfume edging, just for the
Yes, you
kids.
said it, not me. Love it. So I want to ask you, when you were starting to explore the realm of fragrance content and fragrance influencers,
Mhm.
um, I I'm interested in sort of like your evolution with that. Like you said that you started off with like some of like maybe probably like the bigger
Yeah.
YouTubers, right? So when did you realize at one point like, nah, this is not right for me? Like when did you realize like I need to I don't want to say graduate because that sounds kind of condescending, but
Yeah,
when
but
did you realize that you wanted to shift your attention in a different direction?
yeah, it's a fair term. It was pretty quick. It was probably within 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'm being a little generous. Maybe it was more 4 or 5 months, something like that, where I realized, that I was just being sold something over and over and over again. And this will be a big part of kind of talking about, advice for people who are new or new to the game, or just young, because there's so many young people in this right now, so
Absolutely.
many teenagers.
Oh my God, isn't it crazy?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
When we first started into our account, we started getting into the multiple thousands of people on TikTok, and I'm sort of doing my thing, which you know can go off the rails a little bit. Jamie had to keep reminding me, remember, these are teenagers, right? That like half this audience is under 18. I'm like, oh God, right. I got to remember
Isn't
that
that
I'm
incredible?
just as likely to be talking to a 13 or 14-year-old as I am to a 30 or 40-year-old. So anyway, that's a big part of it. So it only took a couple months for me to sort of recognize that I was just on the dopamine high, and I was falling for the marketing side of it, and I was
Right.
falling that what I was doing was not actually consuming perfume content. I was consuming directed dopaminergic commercial material that really wasn't about sharing perfume information. It was about getting likes and getting clicks and keeping me engaged. And that's a bit anathema to a guy like me. And as soon as I realized that they're playing a game with me, I'm out. No, I refuse to be hooked. I've just got a little bit of that
Right.
kind of rebellious, piece of my psychology that says I don't want to be influenced by you. And then I was lucky to find, guys like you, AC. If you're familiar, it was right around the time. Well, when I found AC, he was still off the scene. He disappeared for a couple of years, but he had
Right.
such a library of old content.
Right.
And he's a great guy to get into if you're listening. AC Smells is
Hmm.
the gentleman. He's a British Indian fellow. Great content. Um, I found Ramsey, who has his encyclopedic. He's been doing a video a day at least for 3 years, and
Prolific.
um, yeah, prolific producer of content, and a couple of other people. And that's when I really started getting into the history. I started getting into vintage. I started developing an appreciation for notes and the perfumers themselves, and the interesting history of the company. I mean, the whole thing could be a soap opera, the history of perfume. I went down that road, and continued evolving my nose and getting into perfume, as I said, and then ultimately have gotten then into the entrepreneurial side of things. Jamie and I
Nice.
are now doing some distribution for a wonderful brand out of India called Perito Moreno. We're ultimately looking at putting up a retail shop here in Denver. There's a desperate need for it, and so it's been a pretty rapid trajectory from casual guy sitting around his living room sniffing dupes to being really really immersed in the whole industry.
Yeah.
And as Jamie and I have discussed, it's one of the first things that she and I share as a passion that we get to do together. We love being together, which is you know perhaps a bit unusual for couples.
You're lucky because my partner, he can't stand fragrance.
Really?
So it's definitely like I have my hobby partitioned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I've just continued to ride the wave of this passion for, again, not just perfume as an object, but for the artistry, for the history, for the
Yeah.
industry itself. I'm excited to see where it's going to take us, but we're all the way in at this point.
Nice, nice. I'm happy for you. I actually was. I'm not going to say I'm surprised because you have charisma and so does your wife. But then I saw I saw your TikTok finally, and I'm like, oh, these guys are doing good for themselves. Like that's
Uh,
to be an anti-influencer and to have sort of a, I don't know, sort of anti-establishment way of doing TikTok, and
Yep.
then still managing to gain the amount of followers. That's pretty impressive because,
Thank you.
people really start to, they assimilate, right? They
Yeah,
assimilate
for
into what
sure.
the yeah, yeah. And you guys have stuck to your guns and have decided not to fall into those uh, techniques that are
Yeah,
expected of a TikTok influencer.
that's
So
right.
I really am impressed by that. Um,
Yeah, for
and
us,
it's yeah. Oh, sorry. Go
no,
ahead,
no, it's
Chris.
okay. I was gonna say, just, for us, one of the things that helps keeps us centered, because it can suck you in. I see how people could maybe start out with the intention to be authentic, and then all of a sudden, well, people want to send me free stuff, and I like perfume, and why would I not accept free stuff? And suddenly your style changes, and you're a little bit gentler here, and you're a little bit less authentic there.
Right.
The thing that keeps us really centered is that for us, it's first and foremost about community. It's about connecting with other fragrance lovers. It's about connecting with other content creators. It's about connecting with, especially the indie perfumers.
Yes.
And we can talk about kind of the direction of the industry. And just as a quick aside, I don't know if you're familiar with all of the kind of hullabaloo that's taken place in Facebook recently with the big marketplaces. Have you heard
Yes.
about how they
A
got
bit.
shut down?
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently, because Chanel and a couple of other big brands came after people for copyright stuff. And
Yeah. For crying out loud.
really, really, you know, just an interesting time to be in the industry. But
Right.
for us, if we can stay centered on community, creating community, being involved, connecting with followers, connecting other people with great indie perfumers, because there's so many wonderful, especially American indie perfumers doing just
Right on.
amazing work. That again, part of the anti-influencer thing is, kids ask all the time, well, what's your favorite Louis? I'm like, I'm not even going to answer that question.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
only because I think Louis Vuitton is pretty mediocre stuff, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, but
Yes.
because it's like, even the question itself speaks to this. I don't know. I'm just going to call it a problem in the industry and in the community. It's like, well, wait, you're 16 years old and you're asking me which $500 designer fragrance to buy.
Right.
That's the wrong question.
Yeah.
And if we can just start to steer some people in a new direction and connect them with, Mark Sage and Darren Allen and those kind of people doing, Michael Paul of Day Three Fragrances, and it just, there's
Very
so
talented
many
perfumers. Very
good
talented.
perfumers doing really, really good quality work, interesting, that for people to know they have options, right? So
Right.
that's
Right.
that's a big part of it.
And things that are new and exciting
Yes,
the willingness of a lot of indie perfumers and artists and perfumers to go against the grain of what is considered, safe and commercially viable. And
right.
that's like a hard thing to do when you're actually trying to be commercially viable,
That's right.
like, so that we need to give them the attention
Yeah,
because they're exploring, the history of perfume, and they're exploring these concepts and ideas that we're not going to really necessarily get obviously from a Louis Vuitton, but even from some niche perfume brands. And we're
right.
talking not even so much like Parfums de Marly, but some of the time tested niche perfume brands that have been around for some time, but they've been bought out by, larger conglomerates, like
Right.
some of the ones that I absolutely love, like Frederic Malle and, Serge Lutens. There's limitations of what they can explore because they're under the mercy of a number of different, um, you know, you think about shareholders, you think about people who have certain uh, decisions that they have to meet some sort of minimum sale,
Right.
accountants, number crunchers, you name it. So the time that today is, we really should look to the artists and perfumers to find the most exciting stuff.
Yeah.
It's not to say that non-artists and perfumers are not doing exciting stuff, but if you want to find somebody who is really approaching it from an artistic perspective, it's like people like Clandestine. I actually wanted to um, point out to Cole. Cole, I actually have an interview with Mark Sage of Clandestine. We did an interview back in, I believe it was February of 2023, an effluvium just very much like this one. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Check out the live streams. Look at the effluvium ones. I have interviewed many different Indian artists and perfumers. I've interviewed even mainstream. I had Christophe the Damiel at one point, and I had Mark Sage. So check out that interview from a couple years back. It was great. If you don't mind, Noah, I just want to highlight a few comments.
Yeah, let's do it. Go for it.
So just getting back to people who are interested in selling. Duncan, you know where to find me. If you're interested, I'll let you know what I'm selling. Just hit me up. I tend to sell my stuff, Cole, on eBay. If you are on Instagram, you can send me a message there and I can give you the details. I don't want to be, public about my eBay sales. Conflict of interest. You never know with YouTube. But you can contact me on Instagram at JJ Colborn, and I can let you know of the details on that. And then I'm just looking at the most recent comments here. The kids just want the shortcut to the best. This is heuristics. The shortcut to the best. A equals B. A plus B equals C. We're going to talk about that. I want to really get into those heuristics, actually.
Yeah.
Not just the kids either. That's why the top 10 list videos are the best. My top 10 videos are always the most watched. And
yeah,
it's not that like I really want to keep on doing top 10 videos, but YouTube, somehow the algorithm, if you put top 10,
have to.
everybody starts watching it.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to do it my own way. I'm going to do top 10 carnation fragrances, right? Like I'm not going to do top 10,
right,
daily drivers or some shit like that.
JJ, we've found that if we just label the video top 10 and then just do whatever we want anyway,
whatever you want to come to you, right? It's funny.
Works great.
Inner Wisdom School, Center of the Night Afternoon Swim. Okay, so
that's my wife, and so she's messing with me.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, Jamie.
Jamie.
I've already forgot that your name is Inner Wisdom School.
Yeah,
I'll refer to you as Jamie. Sorry about that. Hey, the grimace face that says it all. Philippe Alex. Speaking of Mal Parfum de Travers, that actually I almost did that as like my scent of the night, but I almost kind of felt like it was too cold for it, but I don't know why my mind thinks those things. Parfum de Travers, Un Flux de Cassis, and Noir Pisse are getting discontinued, which is like, that is criminal. That they are like the best fragrances, among the best fragrances from Frederic Malle. So if they're getting discontinued, that is a sign of the times.
Right.
Dante Bois? No. Some of my favorites. All right. So if Noah can't see the chat I'm talking about through the dark.
This is a young perfumer. He's a 16-year-old.
Amazing.
Yeah, he did. I will give him a quick shout out, JJ, because that's what it's about, community.
Yeah.
This is his
precocious.
His first release. I love the audacity of the cinder block.
Isn't that funny?
It's actually solid. I
love it.
It's a solid release. It's an all-natural perfume.
Keep it up. If you're starting off that early, it only goes up from there. Seriously, if you're starting that early, that's really cool. Duncan, top 10 capital letters, exclamation points. Oh, I know about the exclamation points. Let me tell you, at my job, full-time exclamation points work as well, especially when I use this emoji and it's like a triangle, a yellow triangle with an exclamation point. People do not miss my points, my commentary when I do that. I'll check it all out. Criminal indeed. I wanted to smell Un Flux de Cassis, but it was gone. Jesus Christ. Are familiar with Un Flux de Cassis?
I am not.
Well, it sucks because they discontinued it, so you're gonna have a harder time getting familiar with it unless I make.
Is that an older mall?
It is. It actually. Un Flux de Cassis was released maybe in 2000, 2001. It was actually, I think it was like the first when Frederic Malle was first. The house was launched.
Yeah.
Un Flux de Cassis, I think, was part of their line of fragrances. Is Dominique Ropion. It is built around cassis, and cassis is in the same family of trees as mimosa, but it's a little different from mimosa because it's a little rougher and more aggressive and more
Mm.
animalic and has a very interesting smell to it. I don't want to take up a ton of time from our conversation, but try to get a sample. You know what? Actually, Noah, hit me up. I'd love to put together like a little sampler of some of
That'd
my
be
favorite
amazing.
fragrances because Un Fleur de Cassis is in my top 20. Top
Wow.
20, no doubt.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right.
Cole says it's hard to tell who everyone is Forest. Wait, it's hard
Different
to tell
names.
who everyone is Forest with these different names. Wait, I can't follow that. What is
Yeah. Yeah.
Cole? Can you?
Everybody's got a different name on YouTube versus TikTok
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
Discord versus, so they don't know
Right,
who's
right.
who. Yeah.
The chat is very active. I'm very happy about that. We have 33 people tuned in. JJ and Noah, I'm totally down to send you guys some unreleased samples and sample of Dreaming of Phosphenes. Phosphenes? Oh, I'm gonna look at some phosphenes right now. Oh, phosphine.
That's what he based it on.
Phosphenes. Well,
Yeah,
that's
super
that,
creative.
oh, that
The idea
screws
of
up
what is
my.
it? What do those colors smell like? Right? What an interesting concept.
That's quite a synesthetic sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dreaming of Phosphenes, which is my next launch. I love the name, and I know about the Phosphenes. Why do brands discontinue such great frags? Because the economy sucks, the market sucks. You have the wrong people in charge of this decision making.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is caught because it wasn't selling and Mal is gone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lost sense. About 10 years ago, I made buys based off of top YouTubers. Made some great buys in fragrances. However, I don't think I would be able to do the same now. Bilbo Fraggins. What was okay? That's a side conversation. I hate when I do that. Uh, Bilbo. All right, we're all caught up. Oh, Absurd No is one of my favorite people on Instagram. Love
Nice.
you. Glad that you're tuned in. And it just keeps on coming. Forrest is the amateur perfumer that made the concrete block. Okay, gotcha. His name is Forrest. I love
No,
that
that's not
name.
actually his name. That's one of his handles on a different forum. That hence
No,
the confusion. Let's
forgive
not worry
me.
about it.
Forgive me. Rich, famous. It just keeps on going. Guys, I don't think I can keep up with this. Like sulfur and eggs, that's an AB conversation. We're going to see yourself out of it. Okay, we're going to get back to all right. So my
Yeah.
proposal for the discussion tonight is the heuristics of the fragrance hobbyist and consumer. Now, for people who don't understand or they don't know what heuristics is, it is a way of making a determination when faced with a situation. So you're making a determination, you're making a decision based on what you see in front of you or what you have taken in for information. So we have many different types of heuristics that we can observe amongst the fragrance community. You have heuristics for quality. That's a loaded term, quality, right?
Mm.
Performance, value. So you get your value. You're spending money on something that you feel like you're getting your money's worth. Critical acclaim, right? So you have some people where they might be happy that Justin Copeland said something really nice about the fragrance, and then you have somebody who's like, well, I can't swear. I don't want to be demonetized. Screw him. How about what did Luca Turin say? You know, and then you have the vintage is better, right? Vintage is better. So there's a release. So we'll do an equation: release plus vintage equals better version, which we know is not necessarily always true. So there are examples. There's many different examples. Current releases are inferior, too synthetic, too sweet, not creative, not necessarily true, but all these different heuristics. So tell me, Noah, these different heuristics that you've noticed now, you're probably, I mean, I know that you haven't been an enthusiast for a very long time, but what are some of the ones that you've already kind of grown out of and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to really base it on that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Great. Well, great question, JJ. And I'm going to give a really unusual answer,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's just so in alignment with kind of where I am personally in relationship to the industry right now. Ironically, the one that I have grown a bit exhausted of is quality.
Mm.
And here's why. again, the way that these things go in cycles, it's like, no, this is, on the one hand, I'm criticizing Louis Vuitton because it's, about 25 cents worth of materials in a $400 bottle,
You
right?
said it.
And going, well, this isn't the, there's not enough value proposition there, right? So I would
Right.
put probably value proposition is very, very high up for me. And I would throw personal relationships are up in there as well, or industry relationships. But um, so you go through that whole progression and you come to appreciate quality. Well, as more and more people have come to appreciate quality and seek quality, now all of a sudden, what I'm seeing, in particular, the small subset of the community that I'm involved with is essentially it's become a quality arms race in this kind of artisan side of things where you see a lot of small brands that have launched and their whole proposition is who can stuff the most expensive naturals into the smallest bottle possible, and
Right.
that's the primary selling point. Now, do a lot
Right.
of them smell good? Yeah, because they're ridiculously expensive naturals.
Yeah.
um, do I think they could be a lot better if and again, this is personal taste. Who am I to say, right? These are people with a lot more experience in the industry and in particular perfuming that I have. But you've got people charging $600 for 30 mLs, if not more, because well, there's this many grams of 80% iron, this and this many
Yes.
grams of ancient oud from the Oman treasury, and I get some of these and I smell them. I go, I mean, yeah, it smells good, but it just kind of weighs. It's heavy. It weighs on the skin, and it's you've hit the asymptote. Like you hit it $500
I
ago,
love that.
right?
The
Like,
asymptote. We got to make a little bit of a geometry going on
yeah,
here.
we're gonna
I
get
love it. No,
mathematical here.
that's a
Where
good word to describe it. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, where I've got a few samples. I don't want to name any names, but I've got a few samples here of this kind of stuff that's going for, $20 plus per milliliter. And you spray it on and you go, "Ugh," I mean, it smells good, but it doesn't smell $20 a milliliter good, right?
Right, right. Well, the thing is that there is this fetishism about the botanical materials, the raw materials, but my concern is that with a lot of these artists and perfumers who happen to put the emphasis on the rarity and the exoticism of these natural materials, is that they need to be used in a way that brings out the best of them,
Right.
or used in such a way that shows an understanding of how they more modify a perfume rather than drive it. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? Like some of them are
100%.
not meant to drive a perfume.
That exactly. Yes.
Right, right, right.
And
And I
and
find a lot of them doing that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and I think paradoxically, it's actually it diminishes the artistry, right?
Yeah,
Compared to the work of some of the perfumers in the Frederick Malle line, for example, that might be 70% synthetic, but they're gorgeous. They're works of art because
right.
there's a master perfumer who isn't obsessed with the idea of cramming as much expense and as much rarity into the bottle as possible. It's about
Right.
the beauty and artistry of the finished product. And in my experience, that rarely comes from things that are exclusively natural and or exclusively the highest quality, most expensive ingredients. That there's got to be some kind of give and take. The synthetics are there for a reason.
Simply put, it isn't what is used, but how it is used.
Hmm.
So it's all fine and good if you have a few of these rare and precious and beautiful natural materials, which, let's remind ourselves, some of them are perfumes in themselves. So they need to
For
be
sure.
treated with a lot of respect and finesse, because you don't want to squander these natural materials in a way that they're getting lost in the mix. That really disappoints me when you have some of these um, artists and perfumers and they're using all of these remarkable natural materials, but they're just using them for the sake of saying, I use these in this
Right.
composition, in this release, without really understanding how they behave in a composition. And then what ends up happening if you put too many together, it's like too many cooks. You have too many of these things that are competing, and
Yeah.
it ends up being sort of like if you're painting. And I think this is a wonderful comment from Liminality Audios. I keep going back and forth morally with price, quality, and whatever else, simply because you don't price a painting based on the cost of the paint. And I think that's a brilliant observation. It really isn't about whether synthetics or naturals are used. It isn't really about the cost of the materials or the rarity of the materials. That's all fine and good if you can obtain them. Anybody, if they have enough money, can obtain them. But once you obtain these materials, what is the magic that you're going to create with those materials? And more often than not, I feel like I'm not really impressed with the end result with the materials that they
Right.
use.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Cole Murin, is that how it's pronounced, Cole? We like quality, just not the ridiculous price from super duper quality that could be reduced. Yeah, it's super duper quote unquote quality, because that quality is a social construct, actually. It's like quality to one person might be, not quality to the other person,
Right.
for lack of a better explanation. Quality is so subjective. We Are Sentient says law of diminishing returns,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's the asymptote problem.
Yeah. I think they could make an extra version that is super quality, but also having a normal level that is more accessible. Yes. And the prerequisite is being, and I'm going to be bold here. Did you see like my whole camera just shaked there? Because the whole thing shaked.
Get fired up.
Is talent.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you put into that fragrance. Do you have the talent to create a fragrance that makes sense and will hit those neurons in a person's brain, helps them fire some things that makes them feel like you are going somewhere with it? Or are you just doing something editorial and saying, well, I have access to all of these exotic naturals. I'm going to shove them all in a bottle. I'm going to charge you $40 a milliliter for it.
Right.
And I see too much of that lost sense here. Then there is Jean-Charles de Castelbajac. Yes.
Great one.
If you use all the paint colors, it just becomes murky brown.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's a big
murky
part of it.
brown.
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of perfumers like that. I mean, I don't want to really, force you to mention names.
Well, let's we won't mention people, but we'll mention a brand. And I actually have
can. This is
I still have
space.
two bottles up here that I've kept. They're the only things from the house that I get. The reason we'll mention them is because the house is defunct now. But
okay,
you and I have talked about Suga, the brand.
Jesus effing Christ.
Well, I was going to be modest about it, but yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of the quintessential example, and it was one of the first. My experience with that brand was sort of the wake up call for me. It was the beginning of the revelation of this. That to your point, anybody can take a whole bunch of naturals and throw them together and make something that smells good. Making something that smells great.
Right. Good is different from great. Good is like, okay, this is good. What you're basically doing is you're taking a bunch of discrete perfumes in the form of natural materials and you're shoving them together.
Them.
Yeah, I know. Decent, but are you a perfumer?
Yeah.
Empty Scent says my materials are quality, natural, organic, sustainably grown and shade with it. Proved a country of origin being its original indigenous crop, not GMO induced plant. 5,000 milliliter. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that crap, and it's like, you're not fooling me with that, man. Not at all. Mark is here.
Oh, Mark, look at that. The man
Mark is here. What's truly ridiculous about creating and fragrances based entirely around great materials is that it's difficult to make something combining them that's an improvement on the materials themselves.
Bingo.
And that is a cogent point from our dear friend Mark Sage.
Yes.
What are you going to do to flatter and impress, and I love the word exalt that
Yeah,
material.
nice.
How are you going to make that material more than what it already is, rather than just let it get sit there with other things in a blend? What an active and we have 38 people who are tuned in. That's wonderful, because they love you, Noah. They love you. We are sending. I like being a photographer. Like being a photographer, not matter how much expensive gear you
That's
have.
right.
Oh my God. I don't even get me started with some YouTubers who mention all the expensive gear that they use to create their videos. Like, I don't care how expensive your gear is. You know, are you making a video that's compelling? It's not, it doesn't matter how much expensive your gear you have. It's the point of the lens, the point of the lens. Yes. Yes. Ooh, no, I'm not going to mention you. I'll just let that speak for
Cough,
itself.
cough, cough. Yeah.
40 pep, 16 like. Oh my God. What's wrong with you people? If you're enjoying this, you should be liking the chat. We only have liking the live stream, rather. We only have 19 likes, and we have 38 people who are tuned in right now. So any one of you who have not liked this stream, you got to make sure to like it, because it's important. If you enjoy this stuff, if you're here watching it, I mean, you want it to be successful. You want more people to watch this. People are going to find this, and they're going to keep coming to this channel if you like the stream. So Scott Bear says, talent, precisely. Look what Natalie
Great
Lorson
example.
did with Encre Noir, competes with fragrances 10 times the price. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is true. Mark says, yes, Encre Noir Lexime. So much ISOE super, it like triggers my asthma, but that's my
Was it?
asthma. Yeah, but I love it. It's like
Yeah.
that's not the fault of the fragrance at all. Like,
Oh,
it's just my asthma.
it's beautiful.
But it's really good. It's really good.
Another one of hers, the Bentley for Men Intense, you can get for $16.
Which is a great it actually is that I think that's actually Michel Amarok, isn't it?
Is it?
Michel Amarok,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought that was her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they're kindred. You know, their styles are similar. Mark says many indies are now just replicating fragrance marketing, only actually using expensive materials. Absolute garbage. Olympic Orchids uses a lot of naturals. And Ellen Covey she knows her way around the materials and actually can create a perfume out of them. Yes, please. 20. Goodness gracious, people. It's the simplest thing to do. I'm going to be asking you for more later, but at least for now, 24 likes. 24 likes. I'm sorry. No, the chat is so active. It's like when I smell straight patchouli EO, it's divine,
Yes.
dynamic perfume itself, right? What am I supposed to do here? Try to improve on nature? And that's where a talented perfumer comes in. Don't be afraid to say, this is a talented perfumer. They're making beautiful works of art. Don't be afraid to say, this person needs to work on their skill a little bit more, right? Bentley Black. Oh, yeah. No. So
Yeah,
we are
I just
sentient.
looked it up. Bentley for Men
Yep.
Intense is Natalie Lorson. I think the
I was
black.
thinking of the absolute. So my apologies,
Yeah.
Noah. Actually, she did the intense, and Michel Amarok did the black Bentley absolute.
Yeah.
So you were right. Yes, show it for us.
Yeah, that's the Intense.
Yep.
The only
Thank you for.
criticism is that I can spray 30 sprays of this and it lasts me about 2 hours. But guess what? It's $16, so spray away.
Well, I mean, what's the problem with that? That's another heuristic too, right?
It is.
So the value of a perfume is based on how it performs. So there are so many beautiful perfumes that, just because of the nature of the aromatics and whatever is put into them, is not going to last more than 2 to 3 hours. And that doesn't mean that it has less value to it.
Right.
It just means that you enjoy it for what it is, and you reapply when it is, when it is died down on your skin.
Or
right?
for those of us who are in ADHD land, you learn to embrace the positive side of this, which is that after 3 or 4 hours, I get to put on a new scent.
Well, I mean, right? So if you are a die-hard, hardcore, like fanatical perfume enthusiast, why would you even care at that point? Because, like you said, it
Yep.
gives you the opportunity to wear something else.
Right.
That's totally a good
Why wear
point.
one fragrance in a day when you can wear four? That's going to be on my gravestone.
Very nice, very nice. Natalie was a perfumer for Bentley Intense for Men. I know, guys. I was giving the absolute. You don't have to rub it in that I was like confusing the two. Keep pace with the Idol and So Cheap. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's actually it's on par with Lube Idol. The Intense lasts a long time on me. That also speaks to YMMV. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
Somebody may, for whatever reason, We Are Sentient mentioned it earlier, nausea, may not detect it because our nose adapts to it over time, but it's still there. Yeah, very good point. Bogart Porum, amazing fragrance for under $20. Who did Bogart Porum? A really good perfumer did Bogart Porum.
That's a good question. Somebody will tell us.
Is it Dominique Ropion? Let me see. I can.
See if I can
Do
find
you
it.
have that one?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bogart Porum. It's. I have another tab open up here. Is it Dominique?
That's
It's
the vintage.
close enough. Maurice Roussel and Nobet Bijoui. Both work together on. Oh, that's Bogart, the original Bogart.
Yeah.
Look at that. You have and not only do you have the original Bogart, but you have the original Bogart.
Original. Yep.
I have Dively or Deveris from the 80s. My favorite from Bogart.
Which one?
Dively or Deveris. DE space VIRIS.
Well, I know what I'm hunting down next.
It's an expensive one.
And then there's the one they call the signature, which is the Bogart.
The other bottle that you have is the original version of what became the signature.
Right.
Yeah. Look at you. Look at you. Very nice. Maurice Roussel, that's right, Scott. Lawson says I bought a 480 ml bottle of Bogart Porum.
480 milliliters.
400. I like how I just passed that. It ain't no thing. Yeah, 480 milliliters. That's a big bottle. Roussel also did the fantastic TL pour Louis. That's a lovely. To me, Ted Lapidus pour Louis is sort of a modern take on Polynôme de Caron, but has that sort of like twist to it. You can't wear Bentley Intense while being pulled over by the police. You might get a DUI. And 480 mil. Wow. Thank you for chatting in the chat.
Which is so fascinating. It speaks to the change in the industry, right? Where once upon a time it was only signature scents, really. It was you went on a little bit of a hunt, but then you were a Chanel guy, or you were an Antaeus guy, or you were a Koros guy, or you were a Ted Lapidus guy, and you just bought 480 milliliters of it, and you were good for 10 years.
And that's what you were loyal to. Yep. Right. I mean, really, the existence of being the kind of fragrance enthusiasts that many of us are today is because of the advent of being connected through social media, through the internet. Because before that, it was a lot more work. Think about the work that involved researching fragrances and finding a community, must have been very, very difficult before the advent of the internet. Empty Sense, agree, whiskey is not my thing. Good to see you, Empty Sense. Now, I'm going to look at our agenda here because we're into the second hour. Wow, time flies. Mm-hmm. So let's see. So what is your, I like, this is what you mentioned most recently. You wanted to give your take on influencers. So I want to just hear your thoughts on what the influencer does today in this zeitgeist of perfume enthusiasm, the marketplace.
Well, I think it's a direct extension of this heuristics question, right? You asked earlier, somebody made a comment, right, that that for especially for the young men, which really is the target audience now for the industry, it's a race to the top. It's a race to have the best. Except what is that, right? It's not clearly defined. It's only very loosely defined. And who's defining it for the most part? The influencers. And why are the influencers talking about what they're talking about? Often because of their relationships with companies,
Right.
right? And the free bottles and the favors and whatever it might be. Not that there isn't. I don't want to give the impression that there's no legitimacy or authenticity out there. There is. But often the influencers themselves are being influenced, and they're not really aware of it or conscious of it. And to me, that's the whole point of this is to actually be a conscious participant in this heuristic mechanism, this process, this evolution of what, and be conscious, like, what am I doing in this industry? Why am I buying this next bottle? What's actually going on in my mind? What's happening, at a subconscious level that I can become more aware of, because the parameters aren't defined, right? It um to use that popular phrase, the panty dropper, right? At some point it was, well, let me just get something that smells good so I can impress girls, but you only need 3 or 4 fragrances if that's the only heuristic, right?
Right. Right. Right.
But instead you've got kids building these collections that are getting bigger and bigger. And again, so I see, there's, and I think this speaks to why Jamie and I have managed to build up a good audience, is I hope at least that there's a little bit of a pendulum swing here, of people wanting to come out of this kind of machine, this
Right.
grinding machine that's just taking people and chewing them and their money up, um, being fed to the industry, and people wanting to kind of take a step back and catch their breath.
Right.
This was one of the more fascinating things that we experienced when we started our channel. I simply refuse to do sound bites. I just won't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't blame you.
We're the only people on TikTok where basically every video is 10 minutes long. We don't use the short function.
I love it.
And early on, before people were finding us, there was a lot of like, my God, this guy yaps a lot, and what the hell are these people talking about? And God, get to the point, et cetera, et cetera. And then very quickly, we came to understand that there was a lot of people who had a deep appreciation. They would communicate to us. I love that you guys have slowed things down, and that you're having real conversations, and that we can listen in and be a part of that, right? I digress a bit, but it's all a part of again, becoming conscious of why you're participating in the fragrance community, why you're shopping, what is it you're actually looking for, what is it you're trying to accomplish. And the influencers have been a part of this problem, because again, I think this is probably the key takeaway that I would sort of try to convey to young people or new people in the industry, is that you have to be a very conscious consumer of content, and understand that when you're watching influencers, you're not really just consuming perfume content, right? Again, you are consuming dopamine, and that's what they're feeding
Yes.
you. It's this top 10. They don't, I'm going to, I don't mind naming names. It's people's business, and I have no problem with people. You made this point, I think, with Rafi, that it's not incumbent upon them to run their business differently. It's incumbent upon the consumer to know
Right.
what you're engaging with to a
Right.
certain extent, right?
Right.
But
Right. Right.
but I couldn't help myself when I was really frustrated a while back. I think I even made a comment on one of Mr. Copeland's videos, because he has mastered it. He is an exceptional businessman.
Yes.
He's mastered it from top down, and I think he seems like a pretty good guy, quite honestly. But I kind of made a joke in a comment in one of his posts. It was, and I said, top 10 fragrances I picked at random and then assigned an arbitrary title to, right? Because that's the energy that a lot of people are making these videos in. There's no
Yeah.
thought that goes into it. There's no deep meaning. And if the consumer is really buying them at face value, they're being deceived. They're really being misled.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do about that? I don't know. Become more savvy consumers. But Jamie and I made a conscious decision very early on that we didn't want to feed into that. We didn't want to be a part of the machine of fueling spending and fueling dopamine addiction. We wanted to be educators, like I see you in your role. So
Yeah. That's the thing that always concerns me is, what am I doing to enable?
yeah,
Enabling, the concept of enabling. Like, if my viewers, of the people who are consuming my content, are already inclined to compulsive behavior, I know that I'm not directly responsible for it, but what am I doing to encourage it? And then I think to myself, how do I approach what I do in a way that isn't contributing to that?
right.
There is a concept, an effect to be specific, that I could have actually mentioned it in my live stream with Rafi a few weeks ago, but it's something that's called the Diderot effect. And the Diderot effect is this phenomenon, and it occurs when you acquire this new possession, in this case a perfume,
Mm-hmm.
and it ends up leading to the spiral of consumption.
Right.
So you want to acquire more and more possessions. So you buy something new, and it causes this chain reaction where it leads to just buying more and more things. And each time it makes you feel like you need more, because whatever you've already gotten isn't good enough, and you need to reach the good enough, quote
Right.
unquote.
Yep.
And it leads to overspending, and
Yep.
you accumulate more possessions than you really need or you would ever use.
Yep.
I jotted some notes down for folks who are watching on the history behind this, and the reason why it is called the Diderot effect is it was coined by this anthropologist, and he was an observer of consumption patterns. His name was Grant McCracken. So in 1986, he coined the Diderot effect, and it's actually named for this eccentric philosopher from France, and his name is Denis Diderot. And he first described the effect in his own essay called Regrets for My Old Dressing Gown, or a warning to those who have more taste than fortune. Now, bracket that, right? More taste than fortune. So this term has been used in different discussions on consumerism, and it is tied to the hedonic treadmill and for compulsive and addictive behaviors. And we are living in a culture where we're basically enabling each other to develop this Diderot effect, because it is inherently consumerist. So it's like, I'm looking to make a living by making you a consumer, and I'm looking to get you hooked, as if I'm injecting a needle into your vein. So you keep on coming back to me. So you keep on buying more, and and I benefit from it. And then who knows what happens to you?
Yeah. Right. That's right. Yeah.
So the Diderot effect, it's a fascinating thing to consider, and it is abundant, because look at those 16-year-olds, like, lining up their bottles already, and it's like, oh no, where is this going to lead to, right?
Yeah. And and as someone who works in the realm of psychology, and Jamie and I both practice hypnosis in our clinic, that's all about kind of accessing what's happening at the subconscious level, and kind of resolving all of that unconscious conditioning. I mean, it's really painful to see, and it's frustrating. And again, we want to offer some kind of a little bit of an antidote to that. Not that we're out there saving, young people, saving the souls of the young perfumers, perfume aficionados out there. But it's telling, JJ, how we'll do lives, right? And how many 16-year-olds are asking me if I've tried Toscavat, which is, this has become the new thing. It's not, no, niche isn't interesting enough, right? It's not, there's not enough dopamine in niche. Now there's ultra niche.
What is this? Toscavat?
Toskovat.
I'm looking it up now. Okay.
It's
I'm
a
looking it
small
up right
Romanian
now.
brand. with good but not great perfume, but very artistic bottles, very quirky note trees,
And a
um,
lot of well, a decent amount of releases too.
decent
Wow,
amount of releases.
inexcusable evil.
And again, I don't mean to criticize them. They've just done a great job with their marketing and
Yeah,
plugging
yeah,
people
yeah,
into this dopamine treadmill that you're describing, this
yeah,
Diderot effect,
yeah.
right? Where I can see it right away when a 16-year-old is saying, which Toscavat should I blind buy? And I'm going, like, hold on,
None of
like,
them.
like back up a minute. Did you never stop to and ask, why am I suddenly obsessed with this obscure Romanian brand?
Yeah.
Right, and why did I become fixated on that, and why is that now the thing that I have to chase? And it's just such a clear indicator to me that again, coming back to the heuristics, that there are no conscious heuristics at play in that situation. There's no I like these kinds of notes, or I'm looking for a value proposition, or it's just this autonomous kind of, again, dopaminergic Diderot effect treadmill thing that has consumed the
Yeah,
psyche,
yeah,
that's like,
yeah,
I got to have this, not even a perfume that smells great or that smells great for me or that's going to help me get girls, but the most random and obscure kind of ultra niche artistic bottle with the weird name, and only that will satisfy me. And again, it's not a
wow.
criticism of the brand or anybody who likes them.
No, no, because
But it's
it's
so telling.
right, right. And it isn't necessarily like the responsibility of the brand. It's just how things operate.
Yeah, that's right.
Like it's the virality of something is it's fascinating how things become viral in a way that you know the subject of the virality are in no control over. um and of all brands, like it's like, how does that happen? How does it end up
Yeah.
reaching that audience of young people who in the end ask, which one of these
Yes. This or that.
Tuscavat fragrances should I blind blind buy?
Yes.
Like, first of all, like all right,
Yeah.
do as I say, not as I do, because I've blind bought, and
100%.
I am blind buying because I have some experience under my belt, and I have sort of these, I have a method to my madness. I'm not saying that it's good or bad, but
Same.
like I
Same.
like I don't encourage blind buying for anybody who's new to this, and anybody who's new to it, it's such a risky thing. Like, what is up with this brand? Can't you get a sample? Or like, is it hard
Yeah.
to get samples of the brand?
Right.
Like, why are they blind buying them?
Yeah.
Do they have a sample cough rate? Like, I like the brands who are like, no, here's a sample set. Like,
But see,
figure it
even
out.
sampling would be a conscious heuristic process of some sort, right? That
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that they're completely missing that point. And I think, again, that the blind buy has become its own Diderot effect, right?
Right,
That
right,
that
right.
just, sampling a fragrance, finding the one you like, and then purchasing it is no longer enough of a rush. Now
Oh
I have to
no,
blind buy, and I have to
that's
have
a
the
bad.
anticipation of the bottle coming from,
Mm-mm.
Transylvania,
No, 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 no.
and
That's so
arriving
bad.
at my front door in that moment of unzipping the box and not knowing what I'm going to get, and having that first spray. And am I going to, inevitably, no, you're not going to be terribly impressed.
Do you know where you find that as well? In gambling,
100%.
because it's like a gamble.
It's gambling. It's
It's
gambling.
gambling,
Yeah.
and I don't. No, I don't endorse that kind of behavior. I
No.
really like, especially for younger people, and people who have like they have a lower income, and I'm the last person to judge lower income. I'm not sitting here as a multimillionaire
Right.
exactly myself, so I just don't like the idea of people who are getting into this trap
Hmm.
of blind buying as a thrill,
Yeah.
as a rush, because it's an expensive thing I mean, it's expensive hobby to begin with,
Right.
but what's if you end up with something you don't like? And
Right. Yeah.
what do
Now,
you
again,
do about reselling it? Some brands don't even have a very good return policy.
right.
And
Right.
yeah, that's That's
Yeah.
troubling. And that also is not, like I just like my ideal vision of enjoying perfume doesn't involve that.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
it's sort of a very different paradigm for enjoying or appreciating perfume. It becomes more like it ends up becoming more like this compulsive pathological thing.
Well, to your point, you're not even really enjoying perfume. Perfume now
Yeah.
just becomes a dumb, interchangeable, shiny object, right?
Yeah.
That it could be a casino, it could be a
Yeah.
drug,
Yeah.
it could be alcohol, it could be pornography. It's just
Right. Sex addiction. Mentioned this during my live stream with Rafi, and it's funny. A side note, I actually lost some subscribers from that, which so
you're kidding.
obviously it's a touchy subject because people don't want to confront what it comes down to, and this is what I
Wow.
said in that. It's not like I cared. It's like, okay, well, but it was an interesting thing to see. It was like, and I regained them and then some. So like,
Yeah,
thank you.
that is, I mean, I thought that was such a kind of like clean, fair, unbiased conversation that you guys were having.
Well, I think these conversations need to be had more and more because we
Agreed.
need to see
Agreed.
the problem here.
Yes,
We
we
need
need
to
to
see the
call it what it is, like you just
right,
did.
right.
You're not shopping for perfume. You're trying to roll sixes at the table.
Yeah, that's what ends up happening. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I think that it's a very uncomfortable conversation for people to have when they're in the thick of it. And
Sure.
like I have gone past it. I was in the thick of it, and now I know. Like I've long understood that I have an addictive personality, and that's
Yeah.
the first step to realizing like what am I going to do with the decisions that I make. Like lately, like I have avoided just consuming too much content because chances are like there will be something that will trigger that need, that desire. So if I just it's a matter of abstinence too, which is kind of
Sure.
like, now I'm telling my people who are watching my channel like abstain from this, abstain from this.
Right.
Like, yeah, but it's kind of a necessary thing if you're finding yourself in that trap. We have a ton of comments that we need to
Let's do
catch
it.
up
Dive
on.
in.
We have about 40, 50 more minutes of the live stream here. um, I really appreciate this, Duncan. I think your written reviews are more impactful, at least in my opinion. Really appreciate that, JJ. I really, with my writing, I want people to realize that, like, obviously, I think most people can pick up that I'm not trying to sell anything. And that's definitely the least of it. But I'm really just trying to write as a reviewer and a critic. Like, this is my take on a fragrance. This is my experience with it. This is what I observe. This is what I smell. This is what I detect. This is the impression that I get, and to just share that with other people, and to just make it clear to people that I don't have any intentions here to expect anybody to buy it, or to, I don't have brand, partnerships or anything. And much of what I'm reviewing lately is for things that have been long discontinued anyways. So oh, Alex, great to see you here. Good evening. I know that we're a little bit far behind. We're at 8:24 p.m. Eastern Standard, and I am back to over 10 minutes. Have I read Perec's short novella Things? No, but I'm making a note of that, and I've heard
No,
of that
me
before.
neither.
So. Things. That reminds me of the song from the 60s. Things like a walk in the park. Things like a kiss in the dark. I'm dating myself there. All right, Bilbo Fragrance. This space is now big enough to avoid the BS. Ask your fragrance friends for fragrance advice. The answer is the one you like, not what others like. This should be a simple appeal to people who are getting into the fragrance hobby, not what other people like. I've been susceptible to that too. Do you know how many things I've sold because I've given into the hype? Like, oh,
Yes.
this is just fantastic. Everybody's talking about it. And then I find it, oh, like I can afford to buy that. And it sits around and collects dust. Doesn't even fit with my aesthetic, doesn't even fit in with the things that I love. And it's just sitting there languishing, and it needs to be appreciated by someone else. Scott Berg, Noah is correct. Ultra niche is an actual thing on excuse me, TikTok. The adolescent fragrance mullahs.
Yeah.
Funny. This
Well,
is fascinating. Go ahead. No, please.
well, no, I mean, because again, I don't know how into it you are, but it's interesting because I'm talking about, wanting to help the young
Mm,
people not be susceptible, but many of the most influential influencers are teenagers
mm,
or early 20s, really, really,
right.
really young guys with huge audiences.
Because they're digital natives.
Yeah.
They know how to work the system in ways that those of us who are over 35, over 40 years old, we're not those digital
No, no,
natives.
not at
So
all.
they have this savvy for it.
Yeah.
So they can be the biggest enablers. Oris, great to see you. Miss you. Glad that you're tuned in. I hope you're still with us. Junkie said, sorry, but I've got to go. You're already gone by now, but I love you, my friend. Please listen to the rest of it. Late capitalism, babes. The only frag I have blind bought is Not Dark Yet, and it is
Nice call.
amazing. But I
See,
trust that.
guilty because he blind bought it from me, so busted.
Well,
Here,
he trusted somebody who he probably was familiar with your taste, knew.
right?
I've done that. One of my good friends, Ida Meister. Ida Meister, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but
No.
she's wonderful. Um, if she likes something, I'm willing to blind buy it because
Well,
anytime
there's
that,
something to be said for that, for
yeah,
sure. When you have put the time and energy into educating yourself, and you've learned whose taste, whose word you can trust, who's being
right,
authentic, and whose taste is in alignment with yours, then that's a heuristic, right? Then you've got a
yeah,
process.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's developed over time of noticing a pattern.
that's
It's
right.
like, wow, she has a similar taste to I. Um, let me just check this thing out.
Right.
And then over time, it's like, I don't even need to worry about it. Let me just buy
Yeah. Yeah.
it. Philippe Alex, which Henri Jacques should I buy?
Yeah. Right.
Oh my God, Henri
Touche.
Jacques. Jeez. God, I mean, the only thing that's more expensive that I can think of is like JAR. Like that is like the most exclusive. And you can't even buy, you have to go to the boutique in
Oh,
Paris.
really?
Yeah, JAR. Famous YouTuber, I don't blind buy vintages unless they are JJ approved, written reviews. I'm very flattered by that. You trust me. You trust me. Thank you. Oris Eris, intermittent reinforcement. Every 10th blind buy is every
That's
10th
right.
blind buy is
Yeah.
amazing. Famous YouTuber says, I ordered a fragrance for $8.99 with $15 shipping from Lithuania. It arrived like 30 stamps on it. Pretty cool. Love it. Bilbo says blind buys remind me that I'm always right. um, we are sentient sense like it's like climate change. People don't want to face their mortality. Right. Mortality. Well, a
Mhm.
lot of this behavior is all rooted in the fear of mortality. We're not
For
going to get
sure.
to that point tonight, but you're making a good point there. Thank you for having this overconsumption conversation. It's almost like a part two. Noah's helping me out with a part two the pitfalls of overconsumption. Famous YouTuber, can I win $400 if I put my Raja down on the blackjack table? Amy Seidel says, I try to think of it more like visual art. I go to museums and appreciate paintings, have an emotional or an intellectual response, but at the end of the day, I only need a couple
Yeah.
pieces in my
Good
home.
call.
Very smart way of approaching Oris Eris. We have, okay, great, you're still here. I think harm reduction is a valuable approach to think about here. For example, I feel just as satisfied getting a 5 milliliter in the mail as I do getting 200 milliliters. Yeah, I mean, there's some people who absolutely must get the largest volume, and it's like, dude, really? Like,
Yeah.
that, like, that is like egregious at this point when like, I know some people, like, I'm not going to mention names or you see them anyways, and they have everything like standing in rows, and it's like, what are you doing, man? Just get the 50 mil. You're not using any of
Yeah.
it anyways. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I do. Like, I mean, like, I know realistically, I'm not using my fragrances the way a normal human does. So why am I going to get the higher
That's right.
volume?
Yeah.
Like at least try to cut some corners there. Definitely look for yours and Varanus's reviews on base notes. Bookmark them too. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very, very charmed by that. The system definitely rewards the enablers. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Famous YouTuber says fragrances a lot like music. When asked what kind of fragrance do you like, I just reply, good fragrances. And it's give me 50 mil any day. Oh, tell
Right.
me about it. The bear. Okay. I love the brands that give you like smaller versions because it's like that's good enough. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like Les Jardins Retrouvés, they have these like little versions of their bottles, and they're 50 ml, and it's like that's perfect. I blind bought Sybaris by Antonio Puig after reading Alpha Iron. That's me, Alpha Iron. If you haven't made the connection yet, if you're on for Grantaga and you see Alpha
That would be
Iron,
funny if he didn't actually know that was you.
that's actually me. That's actually me. So I think AM knows by this point. So we've known each other for a while. Michael Corolla, it kills me not to get the size.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's an ADD thing right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
With the best price per mil. It is a somewhat like responsible thing because you're trying to like maximize your money. Varanus is Great Scott. And we have Sereve. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sereve.
No.
Saying hello to you, Serev. The Moustache. And Cole says Noah's listing to the don't need to buy 100 mil with the 16 with like 100 mil of clandestine and didn't buy 50 mil. All right. All right. Okay, we're all caught up here now. Noah, if you don't mind, I'm blathering as much as it is. I am actually doing a flash offer here. And people are going to probably think like this douchebag is actually going there. Okay. but so we have Buy Me a Coffee. Okay. So you all know it's a pinned case. I almost said case note like I'm at work. We call them case notes. They're not case notes in this world of mine. That's a work related term. What am I talking about right now? In the comment, buy me a coffee. So if you buy 12 cups, each cup costs $5. You get a 4-bottle grab bag from my surplus collection plus a sample pack. 4-bottle grab bag. Look at that. That looks like it is a Caswell Massey.
This is your old.
Oh. Is that the one that from the 4-bottle grab bag that I gave to you?
Yep.
That's my extra bottle of that. The Newport?
Yep. Fantastic stuff.
Oh, nice. We have a testimonial here. Hi.
That's right.
Noah is a recipient of the 4-bottle grab bag plus sample pack.
Absolutely.
So if you buy 12 cups, which would equal $60, I'll give you a 4-bottle grab bag plus a sample pack from my collection. That's 4 bottles from my collection. I promise you, I'm not just trying to load off my garbage. These are good fragrances. I just have too many. I really do. I mean, I mentioned I have over 1,000. So 4-bottle grab bag plus a sample pack. 6 cups if you are on a budget. We get it. You get a sample pack. That's $30. I'll send you a sample pack. I have a whole shitload of samples. I've gone through them. I have duplicates. Let me send you a sample pack. So that's US only, please. Check the link that is in the pinned comment. And now here is the flash offer, the one that will make people think this will get me on Oda Jerks probably. So I am doing a flash offer. If you buy the equivalent of 20 coffees, so I think it is, 20 coffees. Yeah, I just did the math in my head. I will do a private tour of my entire fragrance collection.
Wow.
This is a flash offer. I'm not going to flash offer, and it's only limited to 3. So the total
I might be one of them.
If the total is $120, well, God, I'm going to feel like a real douche. If my guest is
You've influenced me, JJ.
It's $120. So if you do buy me a coffee for 20 coffees, I'm going to do a private tour. And that means we're going to go on Zoom or this or whatever, closed circuit. Nobody's going to be watching it, obviously, because then it's not going to have any value. It's going to be private. And I'll do a tour of all of the fragrances in my collection. I'll be walking you around to different parts of the house because I can't keep them all in one place. And I'll show you everything. So that is 20 coffees, $120. I'll give you a private tour, my entire collection. Bring out bins, bring out boxes, show you things that are on shelves, wherever, show you all kinds of different stuff. Maybe it'll run about 2 hours. I don't know. We'll try to make it within a reasonable amount of time. So once again, that is 20 coffees, $120, buymeacoffee.com. There's the link that is in the pinned comment, and you'll get a private tour. Let's look at the chat one more time.
Shout out to Scott Bear, who referred to that offer as only fumes.
Only fumes. Hello, hello, hello to House of Darling Perfume. Yay. And Noah, it's me, Everest. He
Oh,
has
Everest. Okay.
confirmed.
I know who
How
that
private is this tour, with or without clothes on?
is.
Well, it's up to you, man. If you want me to, like, no birthday suit. If you want to hang out in your underwear, that's fine, but don't expect any compliments from me. Like, especially
There's
wearing
not enough coffee.
yeah. So if you want to feel comfortable with that, you can keep your camera off. I'm not expecting your camera to be on, but my camera will be on. And surely you should not expect me to have fewer or no clothes on, because I'm not the exhibitionist, that's for sure. Especially since I lost my wonderful physique of my 30s. I'm not going to be doing that. But I should be hanging out with Noah because he would be a good influence, because he has a very good physique. Cole, someone in the chat, what kind of frags are JJ's type? Okay. All right, let's get back to the conversation. I don't want to keep on making this about me and getting donations for me. We're going to go back into the chat here. So you were talking about the possibility of going over the appreciation of fragrance as an art versus capitalist consumables. Where are we seeing this right now? Are we seeing a divide? Tell
Well,
me.
so there's a couple places this comes up. One is an extension of the conversation we've been having, right? That there's not enough conversation about perhaps the artistry behind this and the history, and so it's they've just become raw consumables. But the other thing that comes up a lot is people ask us about it comes up when the conversation with dupes, and people have very strong opinions about that, and they will very strongly assert that this is art, and you're stealing somebody's art. And now I have my own personal take. I don't pretend it's the right one. My take on clones and dupes and all of that is I won't buy from any brand that is knowingly duping indie houses, small perfumers. I simply will not support that. But that otherwise, people who are duping these big houses, to me, it's inevitable when you see Tom Ford has decided to charge $650 for 50 mLs of effing fabulous parfum. What do you expect people to do, right? And so, we can't. My point with this, again, I don't know the right answer. I just know you can't have it both ways. You can't assert that this is art and that people are stealing your art, and then pull maneuvers like this that are the whole industry, in particular the luxury niche industry, is moving in this direction of increasing margins and decreasing quality, right? Well, that's not art. That's not what art is. So, again, it's more about just having this conversation, becoming conscious about what's actually transpiring here. And again, I don't pretend to know the right answer, but I know that the new homages are not art. They haven't gone from creating things like Myths Man and Figment Man and Jubilation 25 to creating Purpose 50 out of a sense of bringing art into the world. Purpose 50, I think, is another one that's $550 now for 100 ml.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Oh
it's crazy, right? So again, I don't think there's anything wrong with capitalism. I don't think there's anything wrong with consumerism. It's the conflation for me that's the problem. We have to kind of pick our battles and understand that you don't get to have it both ways, right? And so for me, I have things in my collection that are more kind of capitalist driven consumables, and I have things that are pieces of art, like Amy was saying, that sit there, and I might not even wear them that often, but they look beautiful sitting on the shelf. I'll open the cap and smell, and it brings up emotion and intensity, and I have an experience. It's a spiritual experience, like looking at a gorgeous piece of artwork. and I don't mind paying for that, but I don't want to be, again, it's this rebellious thing. Don't con me, Biff. Um, don't con me, Amouage. Don't tell me you're selling me a piece of art for $550 when what you're doing is this perfume is just the algorithmic output of how to maximize profit, and this is what was spit out at the other end of the machine.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of take on that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I see a lot of opportunism.
Yeah,
There's opportunism in finding ways to make money fast and make money through whatever means. And I mean, this can be applied to so many other types of consumables. But when we look at perfume, it can be just so blatant. And for the clone realm, I have been torn um, between those who make clones of fragrances that, I mean, it's not like clones just came out of nowhere in recent years. They've been around forever. I mean, you remember
right.
like Parfums de Coeur, you know? If you like Giorgio, you love Primo. They've been around forever. They've been around
Yeah,
since maybe
yeah,
as far back as the 50s and 60s. Um, but then you had like a different business model for them then. And now in this age where I guess accessibility to cloning is at an all-time high, people can get GCMS
right.
reports on things to clone them, and I think that it has crossed the threshold of respect, and I don't really like to give attention to it
Mm,
because I would rather draw attention to those who have a tighter budget to things that are just more affordable to them, that
totally
are
agree.
unique,
Yeah,
um, or encouraging people to join communities that share decants
yeah,
and share like it, to really bring it away from having something that, and to change their idea of what it means to wear a fragrance and the external benefits of that.
mm,
Like if I can't have Baccarat Rouge,
yeah,
then why don't I just get the clone version of it, and then people will think that I'm wearing it? Well, that begs the question, why do you want people to think that you're wearing it?
yeah,
Why do you want people to think that you're wearing the genuine? Like that, you should reassess what it really, what your intention of wearing something is. Like, is it to give people the impression that you have worth because you seem to have something that you actually can't afford? Um, so that's really my issue. And also, like, clones that are going to be cloning things that are like artisan niche. I mean, more so even artisan. Like, what the fuck are you even doing? Why
yeah,
don't you just learn how to make your own compositions?
right, right. Yeah,
Like, why are you going to cop on other things that people do and actually have the talent and put a lot of hard work and skill into creating these perfumes and make a business out of that? That's
yeah,
just, to me, it's just
yeah. There,
gross.
there, there's a few shady companies. I don't know if Mark is still in here, but he, he's aware. He and I have had a conversation about one that was like a husband and wife team.
Fragrance Revival,
That's the one.
they're disgusting.
Appalling, absolutely appalling, just
And they
appalling.
claim to
The
do
worst of
like
the worst.
and they claim to do like dupe versions of like the most obscure fragrances
Stuff
too.
that not in a million years could you come anywhere close to.
Like there is no way you could even get a GCMS report for
No,
some
that's right. Not
obscure
even if you had
fragrance.
the blueprint could you build
Right.
it.
Like they list fragrances that were only in production for like 3 years in like between 1977 and 1980. Like it's
Right.
like, who are you fooling?
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
is not going to smell like that fragrance. Like
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
appalling. Yeah.
there's a lot of shady stuff, and I'm with you. It's like it's got its limit, and I certainly don't want to encourage it. All things being equal, coming back to the heuristic side, one of the things that's become, I mentioned earlier, a top priority for me, in addition to value proposition, is the interpersonal side of things. I would rather buy something from somebody that I can have a conversation with, a person who I can get to know, a brand that I have respect for, who has a certain ethos. Um, and to me, every time I go, I'll mention Mark Sage's work again, not just because he's here, but there's a reason I have that many bottles in my collection that I refer to it as my favorite indie house. Um, and a lot of that is because, one, first and foremost, I love the work. I think it's brilliant work. But two, he's a guy that I became good friends with through my love for his perfume, and now I have a personal connection. And we can't separate these things from the raw olfactory data, right?
Yeah.
So when I go and I grab one of those bottles, it's not just that I love the olfactive experience and that I love the smell. That is inseparable from my associations with a good man and a great brand
Yeah.
and an interpersonal relationship. And all of that enriches the experience. And that's
It
the
makes
kind
it
of
more
thing I would,
meaningful. Right.
yes,
It makes it more meaningful,
there's
right?
so much more meaning there.
Totally. And the inverse can happen too, unfortunately. Like
We
it can be
have,
great. We know that the inverse can happen.
yes,
That can happen. You get to know somebody
yep,
and they're kind enough to like maybe send you a sample or a free bottle or something. Or you just get acquainted with the house, the brand, the perfumer, and then you realize like, oh no, like I'm
yeah,
not so crazy about how this person behaves
yeah,
or what their personality is like, and then it sort of it sullies that whole view of the brand. That's why you have to like put on a good face and like, I mean, there are some people who really don't show themselves in the best light, and
no,
it's like, and then you'll pick up the bottle of like a fragrance from their house, and it's like, oh, and then all you can think about
yeah. Well,
is
because again,
yeah,
it's not voodoo, right? That
yeah,
the olfactory processing regions are so deeply wired into all of these other subconscious limbic zones
yeah,
that to think that you can just have some raw experience of olfaction without these other influences is
right.
you can't do it.
And
So
you can't undo it. It's like the toothpaste is out of the tube, and it's like
right,
you can never wear it again without thinking about how they're embarrassing themselves publicly. It's like it ends up smelling different because you know that they are just acting a fool
right,
online. It's
yeah,
like I can't like unthink it. I can't undo it, and then I have to just like get this away from me.
yeah,
And that's why it's so rewarding when you do meet somebody like Mark, or like in my case, like Marie Pierre Blanchette from Miscale,
mm,
and you realize like they're really good people, and they have like they're really mature people and
sure,
like
sure,
talented and like wonderful and compassionate, and it's like those are the people that makes it so much more rewarding because you think of how wonderful that person is too,
yep,
you
yep.
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah,
even works with somebody like yourself, people who are influencers or educators who and trust, um,
yeah, yeah,
and
thank you.
come to have a great deal of respect for that. That if I know that you have had some great experience of a perfume, I want to smell that, not just because of the raw information about how the perfume smells, but it's like, no, this guy JJ, there's something about him, and I love his vibe, and this is meaningful to him. I want to get to know this scent because I know I'm getting to know JJ, right? And there's a connection there, and so it's that interpersonal connection part that I think is missing a bit, from the
Yeah,
industry. That's certainly
totally.
missing in terms of, again, coming back to the conversation about how influencers are engaging with people, how young people are engaging with the industry,
Yeah,
and that's the thing. I would love to continue to help people get engaged with the relational side of this. Again, the community side of fragcom. Everybody's focused on the frag side.
yes,
The community side is just inextricable from, to your point, it's inextricable from the experience of wearing the fragrance.
The
Um,
community part is what really makes it more meaningful for sure, because then you can kind of take yourself out of that, like that hedonic treadmill as well, because you're actually interacting with the other people who are having this shared experience, and you're able to kind of keep each other in check too. It's like, I'm going to
yeah,
hold you accountable, like, no, no, you're not going to blind buy that, because you're not
right,
going to waste your money on that. Or, like to kind of to temper things a bit, you know what I mean? And I think that, a community can do that. Community can do other things where they do enable, and we did mention that
for
earlier,
sure.
where it's like, this is amazing, everybody must have it. And it's like you're kind of feeding into that FOMO. But it's good to balance that kind of like enthusiasm with, it's like the things like I said, like your mileage might vary. You
Yes.
may not like this if A, B, and C. So
Yeah.
just tread carefully.
Right.
um and I think that's what makes like a more meaningful kind of discourse about fragrance. And there's going to be some pockets of the community who are about just sort of like, we're in our echo chamber and we all love vintage fragrances and they're inherently better and da 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 da.
Yeah.
But then there's going to be people who understand that like vintage is not like this like monolithic, like everything was better back then. That's like
No, for
another
sure.
heuristic that I have. And the one thing that like really bugs the shit out of me about people who are vintage enthusiasts is they also bring in this thing like that it was released when times were better. And it's
Oh,
like
we could start a whole new 2 hour conversation about.
it's like, what is that, like what is your unhealthy obsession with vintages that you think that you're somehow reliving an age when times were better? It's like you
So
have to like look at it like holistically, like things were not really better for some people, like,
yeah,
and then today like things are not so bad with perfume. You just have to be open-minded.
yeah.
um
There's actually a definitive answer. It's a part of a psychological complex that's a
mm-hmm.
part of this. We won't get it's there's not enough time to dive into the deep side of the
Yeah,
psychology of this,
yeah.
but I have observed that phenomenon. It's very, very interesting. And it speaks to this polar split between the puer and senex archetypes in the psyche, which are the set, represent the boy and the old man, the youthful side, and the old man, what wisdom side, and it speaks to people who have what would be called a senex complex. So think
Yeah.
about the cranky old man whose life force has been drained, who just sits on his porch and yells at the kids, get off my lawn,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
you think about that cranky old curmudgeon archetype and the longing for the days when things were better. It's
Yeah.
really it's a longing for lost vitality, lost youth,
Right. Right.
etc. And absolutely, people do it unconsciously through this vintage game.
Yeah.
I won't name names, but there's a couple people that come to mind that they can't talk about the beauty of this old fragrance without all of their psychological, and to be clear, totally arbitrary and illusory psychological associations with
Right.
the time period of that fragrance. And then you do the math and you go, oh, this person was about 9 or 10 when this fragrance was released or when they were first exposed to it. And it's not the fragrance that they want, it's their youth.
The
They
youth,
want their childhood back.
or even this sort of imagined ideal from before they
Yes.
were even born,
Innocence.
of innocence, or things that are not threatening or
Right.
uncomfortable or
Yep.
unusual or different from what they're used to.
Take me
Uh,
back to the world when it was just black and white and
when there's
mom took care of me, and no
yeah,
matter how bad my day was, I could come home and there was a warm cookie and some milk.
yeah, black and white isn't like Jim Crow as well.
Right, right.
And also like, the thing with like, when men were men and women were women, and it's
Yeah.
it's like I
I just know exactly. Yeah.
the irony is so rich, because we're talking about perfume, motherfucker.
Yeah.
We're talking about perfume. We're talking about something that isn't exactly the most masculine pursuit in the world. So
Right.
it's like, if you were looking to, perfume as your muse for transporting yourself to a time when there was these very strictly delineated roles between men and women, I don't know if that's like the first thing that most people would come to mind. It's kind of like, I would imagine that people, it just, it's so weird to me because perfume is inherently not necessarily heterosexual. Like it's like I've
That's
come to
right. Yeah.
realize. So it's like you can't really deny the existence of that, and also the fact that all of these people that that you would obsess over, that these designers who have so much enthusiasm for including perfumes in their repertoire, in their line, like, I mean, Halston, come on, and
Yeah.
like we got Balenciaga, and you name it. It's like, dude, you're dealing with a lot of gay here, man. You're dealing with a lot of
Right.
gay.
Right. Like let's not hold this up as the like the bastion of uber masculinity. Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that's just been so fascinating to me. And it's like, like I'm totally not like, super, super ultra left, like masculinity is inherently bad at all. Like I am in fact going to be doing a whole live stream with a guest in the future about masculinity and how it can be interpreted through fragrance.
Oh,
But
wonderful.
the belief that that you're teleporting yourself through vintage fragrance to a time that you think is inherently better, it sends a message. It just sends a message to me that, are you really connecting with this fragrance? Like, are you
Yeah.
really connecting with it? Or is it more sort of like a vehicle, like you said, for protecting yourself from things that you're uncomfortable with?
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
But to your point, we're describing the shadow experience of this phenomenon that if we can
yes, yeah,
become conscious about it in the light, you're talking about the ability of perfume to transport us into some new dimension, or to reconnect us with lost parts of ourselves.
yeah.
There's a whole positive light side way of working with the phenomenon that you're describing, but it requires us to be aware of what's coming out of our mouth,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how and to stop and go, wait, boy, I'm awfully impassioned about this in a way that doesn't really make sense or is consistent with perfume. There's something else going on here, right?
Oh, the shade coming from Oris
Ooh,
Eris.
Laura's telling Laura's telling the hard truths.
Oh, oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it's like I think the teleporting is great, but the teleporting with the idea that it is sort of this, because like I love the way that a lot of aspects of society were in the past, without seeing it as uniformly superior than what things are today. Like I wish some of the things from our past were still part of our society today, but there is a grief that comes from that, realizing that is never going to be the way it used to be. Like
Yes.
we're not going to be dressing the way that we used to as adults in the
Right.
1930s and 40s. We're not going to have that same sort of rules of etiquette. I mean, we can carry that in ourselves as part of our identity, but we can't expect the rest of the world to revolve around what
Well,
we
that's
want it
right.
to
And what
be.
we
Yeah.
really need to be doing is confronting and working with the grief, and not trying to solve it through, these associations with perfume. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It can't be. And I ruffled some feathers and was alienated because I was bringing into relief those things, and it
Mm.
really wasn't. It didn't. It wasn't. People weren't responsive to that. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to talk about that gay shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I don't want to. I want to pretend that doesn't exist,
Right.
and it's like,
Right. Right.
yeah, it kind of is. And it's like back then, it wasn't easy to be gay or bisexual or lesbian either. So not only were they like the drivers of the creativity, but they also had to like keep that very big part of themselves hidden as well. So it's just like this book that I picked. I have it over here, and I shared it not too long ago, of this gentleman, J.C. Leidendecker, who was able to do this coded masculine homoerotic imagery in things like the Saturday Evening Post, because that
Interesting.
was the only way to get it out to the covert homosexual in the early 19th century, early 20th century, sorry. Yeah, I share. And this is like, this is the stuff that I'm talking about. It was so underground
Oh,
that it had to be
fascinating.
coded. And these kind of images would end up being in magazines for the general public, but he was able to code it.
Wow.
We're in an age now where it doesn't need to be coded
Right.
anymore.
Right.
So yeah, and things were coded also in perfume. Think about Germain Sayer and Bandit. Germain Sayer and Bandit. Bandit was actually in the underground. It was the lesbian's fragrance.
Was it?
It, because it was like the lesbian was going to,
I just got
just
my nose on that for the first time, and case in point, I don't care if it was designed for women. I told Jamie, I'm taking it. This one's mine. I'm keeping this.
Bandit is gorgeous.
Stunning fragrance.
Gorgeous. And
Stunning.
it transcends. This is the thing that I say to people when they talk about gender and fragrance. Like, you know what? I, you know, in some ways maybe I am a little bit conservative about gender expression and stuff, and then like I own it, and I think it's like I feel more comfortable with a masculine gender expression and I always have. But the thing that's wonderful about perfume is that if you want to explore different kinds of gender expression in a way that
Yeah.
that is not, that you're not choosing visual, you're not choosing some other kind of like sensory way of expressing it. It is a great way of exploring these things. And like I think that that's what's great about it, because the truth of the matter is that it's whatever you impart on it, right? Because it
Yes.
doesn't really have a gender, you
Yep.
know.
That's right.
I think that's what's really great about perfume, is that if you don't want to explore it in other ways, or if you don't really have an interest in exploring in other ways, then that is your outlet. So you can't say to somebody else, like, I didn't get in touch with some other, gender expression because I'm doing it through fragrance.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Or as Sarah says, yeah, I mean, who doesn't want more virility? So I certainly do, but there is a way to welcome it without engaging in retrograde oppressive gender discourses, which, yeah, I mean, it's pretty bird brained when I start hearing guys starting to talk about that too. It's like, what, like you're losing me there, man. Fernando says Castorium shadow. Oh, we're this is an AB conversation. Good old Al Manzano. I actually did a review recently where I referred to him not by name. And his this is somebody who was in the live stream circuit a couple of
Oh,
years
okay.
ago. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's really interesting how it becomes sort of this badge, right? Like this badge, like I'm into the masculine fragrances.
Yeah.
These are when like these fragrances today that are marketed to men, they're so feminine and they're so sweet, and it's like,
Yeah. I mean, the irony, JJ, is that like you, I express more masculine. I'm comfortable with that. I don't love a lot of the kind of mushy unisex luxury niche stuff that's out on the market today, but not because of any sort of gender associations or not masculine enough. It's paradoxically, it just seems to lack. It's like in the stripping away of identity, the perfume itself seems to just become a little bit more formless and mushy, and it's not saying like say something, right? And I would much rather wear Teatro alla Scala
yeah,
or opium, something that is
right.
overtly feminine, but it's overtly in your face feminine. I'm much happier in that than I am wearing like an Initio or a Zerjoff or something like that.
Right, right, right. It's all culturally bound. It's like, if you were to release Bandit today, something like Bandit today, people would, I think that they would be more inclined to think that it was supposed to be a men's
I
fragrance,
would
and
agree.
an older men's fragrance too.
Right.
They always do that. Like, this is appropriate if you're over the age of 40,
Right.
45.
Right.
We'll start talking about that too. Aging, putting an age on fragrances as well is very, seems very restrictive as well. But there's just all these things where, we're putting things into categories and we're limiting ourselves, like the great, smorgasbord of experience with fragrances, because we're afraid of people thinking that we're wearing something that is meant for the opposite sex, or meant for somebody who's older than we are, or younger than we are for that
Right.
matter. And it's just wear whatever makes you happy, because anybody who's going to judge you over a fucking fragrance that you're wearing, like,
Yeah.
who
But
cares?
it takes some ego strength, the healthy kind of ego strength to be able to do that. I had an
Yeah.
experience recently of grabbing a sample and spraying it on before going into the gym. And I got into the gym and I went, I smell like a teenage girl.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying on today. Today
Yeah.
I'm in my teenage girl
Yeah.
era, and I'm
It's
just
like
going to
teenage
lean
girl
into it.
cosplay, but you
Yeah,
don't have to put on a mini skirt,
that's
right?
right. But yeah, it takes it takes a little bit of, again, self awareness and
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of healthy integrated ego strength to be able to do that.
Right.
But
You're not getting a friggin' orchiectomy because you're wearing a fragrance that may be deemed to be feminine to somebody out there
right,
in society. Yeah. Um, Wanted to remind folks who are tuned in to hit the like. We have consistently had over 31 people tuned in, and we only have 31 likes. And that tells me a lot of you motherfuckers are not liking the stream, and we need to get up to at least 40 by the end of the stream. We're going to be running for maybe about 10 more minutes max, because we've already been running for about 2 hours, over 2 hours now. So hit the like, hit the like. It's the easiest thing you can do. If you don't want to give me any money, it's
that's right.
easy
Just give me
enough
a
to just
thumb.
do that.
Give me a
If you,
thumb.
but give me the money as well. I
That's right.
mean, please, please, contribute to this kind of content, because you're not going to see this kind of content in many other places that are fragrance related content. It's just, that's the reality of it. So grandma. I think you meant grandma. Grandpa sense. I can't stand the ageism and fragrant
Yeah.
fragcom. Yeah, yeah. It smells like old ladies. Smells like a nursing. I think smells like a nursing home is one of the most offensive things that somebody could say. It's like, come on, people. Do you not know how fast life goes by?
Right.
Like, it's like,
Good
do you
call.
really think that that is like, a cute thing to say? Like that really, that gets my goat for sure. How's the darling perfumer? I love when others tell me they only wear cologne and not perfume. Oh goodness. Oh,
Yeah.
clutch the pearls.
Yeah.
God, you are only wearing cologne. You're not wearing perfume because perfume is for
That's
girls.
right.
Yeah, that's a very Western thing for sure. Like when guys wear cologne. It's like Gomer Pyle, Jesus. Famous YouTuber. It's hard to say any of the thousands of gourmand fragrances that don't smell great, but I don't want to smell like a donut shop.
Same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gourmands. Tough time with them. You know what really, do you notice this, Noah? Like so many releases have vanilla and caramel.
I
Like
have noticed that.
it's like it can't be either or. You
Right.
really want to have both.
Vanilla, caramel, and ethyl maltol as its own note.
Ethyl maltol as its own note, as if like it's not already there
Right.
to support the vanilla and the caramel, right?
Yeah.
And cotton candy, is that so? Cotton
Yeah.
candy, really?
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, rock
What,
candy.
what's your favorite
Praline. I love praline too. Like, give me a break.
what's your favorite masculine gourmand?
My favorite masculine gourmand. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, so I do like some gourmands, but gourmands to me have to be like the gourmands where there's always that little, that sort of contrast where it's like, I'm reminding you right now this is still a perfume and not
Yes.
something that will convince others they can lick you and it will taste good. That this is still a perfume. This is not like, I like gourmands that are not literal. Like, it's like
Agreed.
they have gourmand accords, but there's still like something like patchouli that
Yeah.
throws in another direction, or vetiver, or florals that push it a little bit away from it smelling too edible.
Yeah.
But for a masculine gourmand, that's interesting, because to me, gourmands are mostly unisex,
I
but
would agree.
a gourmand that feels a little bit more masculine. It's kind of hard to say. You know what? I would say one of the earliest ones, which is my love, which is Caron, Pour un homme de Caron, because it
Yeah.
has that wonderful vanilla and heliotrope dry
Tons of
down to
vanilla
it.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that one.
So I would say it's that. And it's an example of where the lavender, which is edible, I like the flavor of lavender as well, but it isn't too sweet. It's
Yeah.
like aromatic.
It's
So
beautiful.
yeah.
Mine's also an older one. It's Animale Animale.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the bottles for those
Yeah,
too.
they're great.
Yeah, that's a good one. Very nice. JD, Eau Noir is a great gourmand with the diabetes. Just like, oh, what's his face? Who was the one who was like, diabetes? Um, what the hell was his name? Somebody in the chat. What was the name of the actor, in the
So
commercials?
Wilford Brimley.
Wilford Brimley. Thank you very much. He was in that
Yeah.
show, Our House, in the late
Diabetes.
80s. He was in Cocoon.
Yeah.
Yes. Wilford Brimley. He was in the oatmeal commercials as well. Yeah. Without the diabetes. Truth be told, I actually have never tried Eau Noir.
Nor have I.
Surprise, surprise. I don't have any bottles from the Dior Prive collection. I don't have any full bottles. There's like, there's when you're as crazy of a collector like I am, you have to draw lines somewhere. And sometimes I just write things off just because it prevents me from losing my mind.
Yep.
And that's one of them. Like
You have to.
I don't have any full bottles from Amouage. I only have decants because I had to draw the line.
Yep.
There's a few other houses like that where it's like, I'm just not going to go down that rabbit hole. I buy gourmands for my wife, but she doesn't even wear them. Stop wasting your money on her. Pat, Pat Lester, when people say granny perfumes, I always roll my eyes. Eventually, granny perfume to the new generation smells artistic to them. Yeah, when they're young enough, think about this. Like, if when you're dealing with like Gen Z, so the stuff like millennials and Gen X, etc., will think are grandma perfumes. The Gen Z didn't even grow up when there were people wearing them.
Right.
So to
where did
them,
that
it's
come
kind of
from?
like,
Yeah.
it's kind of new to them. So they don't even have that association.
Yeah.
I like some gourmand notes, but mainly like kako, like cacao. Is that what you mean,
That's
cacao?
probably what it means.
That is
Cacao.
not
Yeah.
sweet, but great. Yeah, yeah. Cacao is mildly sweet at best. Yeah, that's great. And wow, my grammar's broken today. Oh, you just I'm a little behind there. You go. There you go, Cole. My gourmand guilty pleasure is Trezendoux from
Oh, I
Versailles.
don't know that one.
Ooh, I know about Versailles as a house. The bottles, like they kind of, the front of them are kind of like are on like a point, if I recall, and then the labels wrapped. I haven't tried anything from that house, but spice, nutmeg, brown sugar cake on leather. See, there you go.
There
If
you
you have
go.
like a
Exactly.
really good, yeah, like a good leather to kind of anchor it and get it
Yep.
out of that. Yeah, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
Nope. I haven't. I've heard great things about it, but it was just one of those things like it always was way too expensive for me. And like the most that I would really spend were on the Chanel's when I had a Chanel kick that mercifully ended at some point, and I'm not spending any more money on those exclusives. But no, I hadn't. No, I haven't tried it. I've been told I would love it though, but it's fine. I have 1,000 fragrances.
You'll be all right. You'll make
I'll
it.
be right. I'll be all right if I never find out. Follow is a very realistic
They're
coffee.
referencing, yeah, the House of Kerosene has a couple
Yeah.
kind of pseudo gourmands.
Argentinian. You're right, Fernando. I knew it was like a South American house. Versailles. Very nice. All right, so let me look at our agenda here and see if we covered pretty much all our bases, and then we can round things off. You could stick around with me in the green room backstage for a little while. So we covered pretty much everything. Spiritual, psychological exercise. Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything here. Does anybody in the chat have any questions for us here? Any more questions? Because what I'm about to do is I'm going to gear up that theme music. So thank you very much, Noah, for joining me. My proposal to you, yeah, of course. My proposal to you is of Jamie for if she's willing.
Absolutely.
That'd be very cool, and we could do other collabs in the near future when I do my Substack and stuff like that. Maybe I'll show up on TikTok. Is there anything else that you wanted to share for the stream?
No, just thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody joining us, and appreciate it very much.
Sure thing. And we have a couple more chats coming through here. Got a 6 mil of Eau Noir. I think it's plenty. I would say so. Keep with those smaller volumes. So let's see. We have the next Effluvium coming up in about 2 weeks. That is going to be with Demi from Perth, Australia, March 1st, 7 p.m. I might have one next week, but there's some scheduling stuff. So stay tuned. I'll let you know if we definitely have one next week. Noah, let's take it backstage. Everyone, have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and you stay safe. Thank you very much, Fernando, for the super chat. All right. Take care, everyone.